Good evening and welcome to my March 11th, 2025 webinar, What to Do When You Are Addicted to Love. I hope that that title would be fascinating and make people curious about what we were going to talk about um, because the truth is that almost everyone is addicted to love. And I'm going to talk a few minutes about why that is and what love is about. And then we're going to get on to what we can do with that. It's been a fascinating topic for me, and I've even done a session on myself to look into, how I might be addicted and what I might need, what my path forward, or my need to deal with that, and what my path forward was going to look like in terms of dealing with an addiction to love. Now, again this month, we're going to base the webinar on the book Untangling: How You Can Transform What's Impossibly Stuck by Barbara McGavin and Weiser Cornell. This is on chapter 9 called Longing. Here's the book. I hope that comes through for you okay. I'll pick it all the way up. Yeah, it's doing pretty well tonight. And I think it's a terrific book. It's simple, it's clear. Both Barbara and Anne describe their own histories, their own stories, how they became aware that they had energy tangles and how they could clear those tangles up. They don't call them energy tangles, but they do call them tangles. Um, and what they could do with that. And I love the fact that they included in the title transform what's impossibly stuck. Because one of the things about these tangles is that we really get the feeling like this is the way it is for us. This is our reality, and there's really nothing we can do about it. And we struggle within the context of our tangles, and nothing much changes. We can go to psychotherapy. We can spend a lot of money and a lot of time, and I'm talking sometimes years, and still not necessarily get at what's really stuck. Um, so this is an approach which gets things accomplished very quickly, and that's one of the reasons I like it. It's also very simple. It's essentially painless. The whole idea in the process of transforming what's impossibly stuck is we are able to gain a perspective where we can look at what's going on without feeling upset. That is, without identifying with the pain and whatever else is going on in our tangle. And so it's a very beautiful approach. I like it very much. All right, let's turn to our topic tonight, which is love. We hear so many wonderful things about love. It's the it's the essence of poetry and song, and romantic movies and books and romance novels. And so there's a lot written about what people call love. But it's a very superficial understanding of love, I'm going to contend, that it's a very superficial understanding of love, and we need a much deeper understanding of what love is and who we are in order to be able to function effectively with it. Um, Romantic love is often the theme, usually set with two people, sometimes more, who seem unlikely candidates for successful romantic relationship. And I just wanted to say that because so much of our education about love is seems so misguided. Where you get two people who basically have nothing in common and do not function in similar ways in regard to their problems and their situations and what's going on in their lives. Um, and somehow they're supposed to make a powerful, effective relationship out of that. And the usual sense is that, my God, they're not the least bit qualified to do that. They really don't understand love. They don't understand themselves. They don't understand the other person. They don't understand commitment. They don't understand meeting people's needs, putting other people's needs before your own, but not all the time, and so on and so forth. And so you find that much of what we're exposed to in what's called love and romantic relationships is really not a very good picture of it indeed. Um, I'm trying to think of the name of the movie, and it won't come to me now, that I've watched several times, about uh, two young people who have met, and they really hit it off, but things didn't go smoothly, and they wound up not seeing each other anymore. And then they get reunited when the sister of one and the friend of another getting married, and they're thrown together, and so on and so forth. And some of you can probably think of what the title of that movie is, but I can't remember it. But anyway, and the thing that came across me as I'm watching the movie, and I was really, enjoying the movie, but I thought, these two people really just don't know how to navigate love. They're clueless. Um, and somehow they're going to wind up together because, oh my gosh, the attraction. Well, the attraction is, of course, the major thing. It's the big thing about love. And the wonderful feeling, the euphoria is often the word that's associated with that. The euphoria that we feel when we're falling in love and everything seems so great, and that can go on for weeks and months, and you just live in this wonderful space that they call the honeymoon, where everything is just wonderful. And then gradually life gets real. And sometimes that gets postponed until kids arrive. Sometimes it has to do with job situations where one spouse or the other spouse maybe, loses a job or doesn't have a very satisfying job or has a very stressful job. Or there are just other outside factors. Family factors can be a big influence. And finally, things start getting problematic, and we have to wind up dealing with stuff and finding solutions, or ways to deal with the things that are going on in our life, in our romantic life. Um, and so the euphoria can wear off, and we get into a stage where the word that just came to me was fatigue, which was not the word I was going to use. But there is a fatigue that creeps in. Um, but it's a feeling of things being kind of unhappy and not not going smoothly for you. So what is it about love? Well, first of all, we're going to think of love initially here as just the feeling of love, that warm, fuzzy glow, people call it, that just makes everything look so beautiful, and of course the object of our affection look particularly beautiful. Um, and it's just such a attractor that it holds our attention, and that's part of the process. We call it attachment for a good reason, but it's the attachment itself which is part of the charm of it. It feels so good. I'm suddenly a part of something, and it may be a sense of something that's bigger than me. This person expands me. This person makes me a better person. This person brings out my best qualities. And so there's this enormous, what we call expansion of the heart, the feeling which is literally in the chest of, oh, I'm getting bigger and bigger and fuller, and life is just so beautiful and wonderful. And there isn't anything I can't do, and there isn't anything I won't do for this person or for this situation. It's not always about a one-to-one pairing of people. And many times it's a adoration of somebody who's like a guru or a teacher, or some kind of a hero or national figure or important figure. It could be an entertainer, and people just you think of teenagers, although it can happen at a much later age than teenage years, who are just like, oh, that person is so wonderful and they're so beautiful, and they write these songs, and I know they're writing them for me. Um, and so, the ego gets really expanded and really gets enthusiastic about this. So it gains importance to us. It becomes really important. And in many cases, it becomes central to our lives. But even if it isn't central, it still holds a huge importance. It's something we devote time and energy to, and we want to make sure that it works, and we want to keep it vital and lively and, pardon me, enjoyable. And then we find we feel very badly when we don't have it. And one of the things about being addicted to love and being attached to love is being very frightened or upset when we lose that quality. When somebody gets up in the morning and doesn't say good morning, when they leave for work and they don't say goodbye, have a nice day, when they don't call, when they have a break in the morning or whatever, or they don't, attend to birthdays or other holidays or important occasions, with gifts and flowers and all kinds of stuff. Um, these things happen, and then we feel badly. We feel really badly. We're frightened that we're losing that powerful connection. And that's all about attachment. And that attachment is part of the tangle of being in a romantic relationship, being in love, and being addicted to love. It's that attachment quality again. So important. Um, we can say in the language of Cornell and Weiser and McGavin, we can say that our feelings get hijacked. It's a lovely phrase that they use, that the feelings get hijacked. And so we can't do anything but feel the way we feel. We're stuck. We're caught up in this process. And it feels very wonderful when it's working, and when it's not working, it feels really horrible. But somewhere in there is that driving, that longing, that need for love as we've experienced it, as we've gotten to know it, that really makes us compelled to seek it out and to hurt and suffer miserably and even get angry when it's taken away. One of the biggest problems with divorce, while some divorces are amicable, and people agree that we just don't work together very well, which usually just means they haven't worked out their tangles. But I'm not going to get into divorce counseling right now or marital counseling. Um, but when people find that the situation has just fallen apart and they don't know what to do, they can't find solutions. When you're in the tangle, as I said at the beginning, when you're in the tangle, you can't find solutions to the problems because you don't even know what the problems are. And one of the things that people don't get is that attachment, that addiction to love. And so what happens is, particularly between relationships, there's a kind of unsettled, boundless feeling, meaning it's not something necessarily you can put your finger on very easily. It's a vague sort of sense that things are not right. Things are not the way they should be. The sense of well-being is very much disturbed because there's this longing for love and yet a fear because of the pain that's been associated with losing love, a fear of commitment, a fear of involvement, a fear of seeking out a relationship that might actually provide that. And that's the basis of a lot of movies and books, right? Is, the person who's afraid of love, but desperately needs it. And how, usually in the story, then eventually that that desperation gets overcome. I'm going to take a quick drink here. So as we go forth on the path of love or seeking love, uh, we can see how what we commonly call love, which is a feeling, is really just an attachment to something or someone that seems bigger than ourselves, someone or something that uplifts or completes ourselves. But then when the glow wears off, we're left feeling unloved, unfulfilled, hurt, angry, and lonely. And when the glow wears off, and we see that, we come to see that what we call love is merely an addiction to an idea or a feeling, and not the fulfillment of what appears to be the mystical quest for that magic quality we call real love. I wanted to um, show you something. It's a quotation here from Maharishi, which hopefully is now visible on your screen. I'll read it out loud for those who can't read the funny text. And this lovely picture of Maharishi above a lake, which is providing a reflection, if in case you can't tell in the picture what that is. Marshy's in the white robes. Love or devotion is a quality which softens the heart. Now, see how romantic that language is. It's a quality that softens the heart. When the heart is fully softened and there is no corner left in hatred or malice of any kind, then the heart is pure. In this purity, the heart is soft and has the capacity for maximum expansion. Then, when the waves of devotion rise high to embrace eternity, the devotee finds fulfillment in the transcendental bliss. Now, unless you've been a student of Maharishi or one of the other gurus, what was said there makes almost no sense at all. Practically none of the terms are defined, and most of them we only get on the level of kind of a subtle feeling like expansion of the heart. The heart is pure. The heart is soft, has the capacity for maximum expansion. Most of us don't go around thinking about expansion of the heart as the basis of love. But Maharishi did a whole book on it. It's beautiful. It's very beautiful. All right, let me end this sharing here. And I'm going to just tuck this. No, I'm not. I'm going to leave it there. So the poets, of course, and I thought about gathering some literature, and then I just decided not to do it. But the poetry is filled with beautiful expressions of what love is. And all of this is this tremendous feeling with so much energy behind it. And the fact that it unifies the universe for us. It brings everything together because it means we see everything in a state of beautiful, beautiful. I'm going to use the word grace, again, an undefined term, but it's a term that means something to me, and it's a nice way of saying it. But there are lots and lots and lots of beautiful ways of saying it. Okay, I think I've answered our questions why love is important and why we feel so badly without it. How do we deal with this state of attachment to love, being addicted to love, longing for love? Again, when we're in that state, it's essentially impossible to deal with the tangle of feelings that are involved in that with all their energy because there's so much bound up in that. But the really profound insight, and the thing for which I congratulate McGavin and Cornell for bringing out so beautifully, they're not the only ones, but they've done a great job, is that the cure for this addiction, as Maharishi suggested, is being self-referral. Being with self in presence is the way McGavin and Cornell say it. Self in presence, being oneself, and being therefore a witness to our experience, where we accept the inner child, to introduce a concept I haven't really talked about tonight, to accept the inner child who feels closed off, rejected, and ignored. Who is that child? Well, when I say that, first of all, it suggests that a big element of the need, the longing for love, comes from a lack of fulfillment of the need for love in infancy and childhood. Now we all know about, bonding between mother and baby and also fathers, but particularly mothers and babies, the particular bond that develops between them. And when we use the word bond, we're talking about something that's kind of beyond just the obvious. It's a level of feeling and a level of devotion, a level of caring from mother to child, which is just magnificent and powerful. We often think of the tiger of the mother who protects her infant child, or even older child. Um, and that this it just evokes these very powerful feelings, um, but that involves a kind of attachment, which is an important element for the child. It's a very important element. It's important for the mother in her mothering, because the mother has to give up so much of herself, of her own time and energy, in order to provide for the child, in order to really be attentive and care for the child. But when the child grows up and feels loved all the time, then the intensity of longing is not as great, because they feel that they can count on love, and they see the world as a loving place, and they see their own life, they see who they are as a loving kind of person. Um, but when that is lacking, then the longing is greatly increased. So there's behind this notion of an inner child is the sense that there is some part of us inside, a child within, who did not get all the love that they needed. Now, no parent is perfect, and no love is absolutely perfect. And so there's always that possibility that that the child isn't going to get love that they need all the time. I'm just going to do something very quick. Here, we're done. The addicted inner part needs recognition and acceptance in order to transform, because in the relative world, and given the need, and neediness is often a problem in and of itself, given that need, it's impossible to fulfill the need in in one's relationships most of the time. There probably are some exceptions, but most of the time it's true. And so the child doesn't get what they're going to need, um, in order to feel okay, because this is a primordial thing now. This is something that was a defect left over from childhood, possibly even from a previous lifetime. When I do my work, I often see that situation come up, where I'm dealing not just with a life situation from this lifetime, but from something that's been going on maybe in multiple incarnations, and it may be very much a familial pattern. Um, Traditional child raising sees the child as an object rather than as a person to be nurtured and allowed to develop on their own. That has, of course, changed over the last, well, my lifetime anyway, and it's a pretty long lifetime. Um, there's been quite a bit of change in that, but that's where that really has come from. The transformation occurs spontaneously when one is able to sit with the feeling of longing and the need for love, and acknowledge that there is pain there, and acknowledge that there's a lack of fulfillment, and acknowledge that there's also usually another part that's very much afraid of opening to love, for having to face the possibility of the intense disappointment of it coming to an end. And there are some people, more than some, there are a lot of people, and many of them I do know, who don't even expect a relationship to last. They'll get involved in a relationship, but in their mind, this is a temporary thing. And so they kind of have a self-sabotaging attitude, that, well, this isn't going to work out. So, we'll just enjoy it while it can. And then when it goes south, then we'll just let it go. And they don't invest in much. They don't feel a lot of attachment, because they're protecting themselves all the time from feeling that attachment. So I think I hope some of these things ring true. But I hope it's also apparent from the work that we've been doing together and on these webinars, particularly the last three before this one, to begin to unfold the attachment, the tangle, and look at the different components. But in this one, particularly looking at that component that is longing, longing for love, and be able to bring that awareness into our consciousness, conscious awareness, so that that part can untangle, can release its tied up energy, and give us the freedom and the flexibility to be able to receive love when it comes along, and to be able to deal with the fear as it comes up by not running away from it, but by looking at it and going like, oh, and there is that familiar feeling again of fear that is keeping me from loving, and I'm just going to be here with it. So that's the basic formula, and we're going to try that out now in our group clearing session, but I want to stop here, see if there are any questions. If you can just put them in the chat, please, I'd appreciate that so much. And while you're doing that, I'll just mention that next month I'm not going to do another session based on the book. I'm my recent work has all been with energy work, and so I'm going to do a thing just about the experience of energy work, and how I go about doing it, the kinds of things that I've been doing, because they've been really quite exciting and quite gratifying, I must say. No need to apologize for being late today. I attribute all tardiness to daylight savings time here in Iowa and here in the United States. And so our international guests are somewhat dealing with that. I tell you, I've been having such a time with people that I work on in Europe and Asia and such, India. And I'm not sure if all of you are aware that India has a time zone line down the middle. And so what India did was to move the western part up a half an hour and the eastern part back a half an hour so that the whole country's on one time zone, which is a very clever thing to do. But it puts them 11 and a half hours ahead or behind, or now it's 10 and a half hours ahead or behind, and I can never figure out whether it's ahead or behind. So it's it's been interesting trying to schedule sessions with people who are living on the other side of the world, and particularly living in India, where I can never know what time it is. Okay, I'm not seeing any comments, so I'm going to end this presentation here. So next month, the second Tuesday of the month, which I didn't write down in front of me, on the second Tuesday of the month, we will do a session on energy healing. Okay,